Captain Maya Chen stood silently on the bridge of the Andromeda, her eyes focused on the endless stretch of stars scattered like diamonds across the void. The deep black of space enveloped her vessel, a sleek, heavily modified Explorer-class ship belonging to the United Earth Exploration Fleet. She had been out here for 3 months, further than any human vessel had ever gone. Her mission was simple in words, monumental in execution: explore the uncharted frontier, expand humanity's knowledge, and push beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. Maya wasn't new to space. She'd served since the early days of the fleet, back when faster-than-light travel was more theory than habit. But something about this mission felt different. Maybe it was the scale of it, months without resupply, without backup, or maybe it was the subtle unease she couldn't shake since crossing into this particular region of space. She didn't voice it aloud. Captains weren't supposed to show doubt. "Captain," a voice snapped her attention back to the present. Lieutenant Raj Patil, her lead sensor officer, was hunched over his station, eyes scanning rapidly over the incoming telemetry. "We're detecting an energy signature coordinates 247.2 by 8932. You're going to want to see this." She moved toward the console, her black boots silent on the reinforced deck plating. "Put it on the main screen." The display flickered, then revealed a hazy distortion roughly half a light year away. It pulsed subtly, rhythmically, with a precision that screamed design, not chance. The edges shimmered like heat waves. But Maya knew it wasn't just light, it was space itself being manipulated. "Could be a naturally occurring anomaly?" she asked. Dr. Eliza Wong, the ship's science officer, crossed her arms as she studied the data. "No way, Captain. The energy pulses are too stable, too deliberate. This isn't random cosmic activity. This is engineered. If I had to guess, I'd say it's some kind of boundary marker." Maya's brow furrowed. A border. Out here? Humanity had been moving rapidly into the stars ever since the development of gravitic fusion drives made interstellar travel viable. In the past century alone, Earth had established over a dozen off-world colonies and hundreds of automated mining outposts. But despite their reach, despite the dozens of rumors and theories about other intelligent life, they'd found nothing definitive. No civilizations, no first contact, no welcoming committee. Just cold, empty stars. Until now. Navigator Maya turned to Sarah Johnson, the youngest officer on her bridge, but one of the best pilots she'd ever seen. "Take us in slow. I want maximum sensor range, shields at 30%. Let's not announce ourselves too loudly just yet." The Andromeda began its approach, its engines humming a low-frequency tone that Maya had come to recognize as both calming and ominous. Outside the hull, the fusion drives lit up the blackness with a soft cobalt glow. The shimmering boundary on the display grew closer, its shape more defined. As they drew within range, the sensors began picking up faint echoes beyond the distortion, large signatures, ship-sized and then some. "Captain," Raj said again, his voice tense, "I've got contacts. Multiple vessels just beyond the anomaly. They're big, easily twice our mass, maybe more." Maya's heartbeat quickened. "Are they moving?" "Yes, ma'am. 3 of them just changed heading. They're on intercept." Maya felt the shift in the air, that subtle change in the room when everyone suddenly understood how serious things had become. She turned to her crew, every one of them already springing into action like the professionals they were. "Raise alert status, full readiness, and open a channel any frequency, all bands. Let's initiate first contact protocols." Communications Officer Li Wei's fingers danced over her console. "Channel open, Captain." Maya took a steadying breath. She straightened her uniform jacket, stepped forward to the central holo display, and projected her voice with clarity. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the United Earth ship Andromeda. We are an exploration vessel from Earth, operating in the spirit of peaceful exploration. We come seeking understanding and dialogue." The bridge went silent as her words echoed into the unknown. Seconds ticked by. Then a minute. Then the display flashed. A face appeared. No one on board was truly prepared for what they saw. The alien creature had a tall, elongated skull. Its skin a faint shade of green, so pale it was nearly translucent. Its eyes were large, jet black, no visible pupils. From its scalp down the center of its face ran a ridge of bone-like protrusions, almost like armor. Its mouth was a narrow slit that barely moved as it spoke. "Human vessel," it said, in flawless English. "You have violated sovereign territory of the galactic hegemony. This sector has been under our control for 12,000 stellar cycles. Your presence is unauthorized." Maya stared at the screen, trying to keep her face neutral despite the adrenaline flooding her system. They knew English. That wasn't just shocking, it was terrifying. It meant they'd been watching humanity, studying them. She replied carefully, "We were unaware of any territorial claims in this region. Our mission is peaceful exploration. We apologize if we have intruded." The alien's tone didn't change. "The hegemony has observed your species for some time. Your primitive development did not warrant formal contact. You have remained within your designated developmental zone. You are not authorized to exceed it." Maya bristled at the term primitive, but she didn't let it show. "Perhaps we could arrange a diplomatic meeting to better understand these boundaries." "That will not be necessary," the alien interrupted. "Return to your zone immediately. The hegemony does not negotiate with lesser species. You have one standard rotation to comply, or be destroyed." The signal cut. For a moment, no one said a word. Then Maya exhaled through her nose and said dryly, "Well, that was rude." A few chuckles broke the tension, but not many. Her crew wasn't dumb. They knew what this meant. They were outmatched, outgunned, and being told to turn around and pretend none of this had happened. But Maya wasn't about to be intimidated by condescension. Not now. "Raj," she asked calmly, "weapons systems, active, but not targeting. They're holding formation about 50,000 kilometers out, watching us." Dr. Wong spoke up next. "Their ship tech is fascinating. They're using some form of gravitic propulsion, but it's more refined than ours. Hulls are crystalline, some kind of alloy we haven't seen before. Energy readings suggest significant weapons, but I can't identify specific armaments," Captain Sarah Johnson added. "I've been tracking their movements. They're almost too perfect. No deviation, no adjustment. It's like they're following a script." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Predictable." "Yes, ma'am. They're not reacting, just executing." Maya began to pace slowly. "So they're either overconfident or they're trying to intimidate us without being the first to pull the trigger." Lieutenant Li Wei hesitated. "Captain, they did say they'd destroy us." Very loudly, in perfect English, Maya said with a small smile. "It's almost like they really wanted us to hear it and understand. But here's the thing, they haven't fired. They could have. They didn't." She turned toward her tactical officer, Emma Parker. "If they really meant to kill us, could they have done it already?" Emma checked her readings. "Their positioning is ideal for a quick strike, and their energy levels suggest they're capable. But, yes, they're posturing. No actual aggression yet," Maya nodded. "That's what I thought." She tapped her comm badge. "Engineering, this is the captain. How fast can you retune our sensor array to emit a focused tachyon impulse? The voice of Chief Engineer Viktor Petrov came through, gruff and suspicious. Attack impulse? For what? Just a little experiment. I want to see how their shields respond. Nothing hostile yet, Petrov grumbled, but finally said, "Give me 30 minutes. You have 15, Maya replied. She closed the channel and turned back to her crew. Here's what we're going to do. Parker, prepare a randomized sequence of micro-jumps, short hops in unpredictable patterns. On my command, Dr. Wang, I want a complete analysis of their shield harmonics once the impulse hits. Raj, monitor their comms. See if this stirs up any internal chatter." "Captain," Li Wei said cautiously, "are you sure this is wise? We're not exactly in a position of strength." Maya paused, then looked at each of them in turn. "I know it's a risk, but what we just heard was an empire that's been watching us like we're zoo animals. They've already decided we're beneath them. They didn't ask who we are or what we're capable of, they just told us to stay in our lane." She drew herself up. "We're not looking for a fight, but we're not going to roll over either. If this is humanity's first contact with galactic civilization, we need to send the right message. We're explorers, yes, but we won't be dismissed." Outside, in the blackness of space, the Andromeda moved slowly toward the shimmering anomaly. Against overwhelming odds in a centuries-old empire, a single human ship had just decided to stand its ground, and history was about to take a very unexpected turn. The bridge of the Andromeda hummed with low, controlled activity. After the threat from the galactic hegemony, the atmosphere aboard the ship had shifted. Not quite panic. This wasn't a crew that panicked, but a tense, watchful energy had taken hold. Each officer moved with practiced precision, eyes sharper, voices lower. Everyone knew they were standing on the edge of something big, possibly historic, possibly deadly. Captain Maya Chen remained at the center of it all, calm but alert, reading the body language of her crew like a seasoned conductor, guiding an orchestra. Years of experience had taught her that the measure of a crew wasn't how they operated in safety, but how they responded when the heat turned up. And right now, the temperature was rising fast. Lieutenant Emma Parker had just finished running another analysis of the alien vessel's positioning. "Captain, their formation hasn't changed since initial contact. They're staying in a tight triangular wedge, rotating slowly but without variation." Maya turned to look at the tactical display. The three alien ships floated beyond the shimmering spatial boundary like silent sentinels, massive and unflinching. Their crystalline hulls shimmered in soft blue and violet hues, refracting starlight into eerie rainbows. But they hadn't made any aggressive moves. "Not yet. Same energy readings?" Maya asked. "Same as before," Parker confirmed. "Weapons online, but not locked. Defensive shields holding steady. No sign of increased activity." Maya folded her arms across her chest, considering. "So, they're not backing down, but they're not pulling the trigger either. They're waiting for us to make the wrong move," Rajay Patil added from the sensor console, "or for us to turn tail, which," Maya said, her tone cool and deliberate, "we're not going to do." A beat of silence passed before Dr. Elisa Wong spoke. "Captain, I understand the principle, but we are heavily outgunned." "You know that," Maya nodded. "I do. Believe me, I do. But think about what we just witnessed. They spoke our language perfectly. They've been watching us maybe for decades, maybe longer. And what did they do when we arrived? Did they open dialogue? Offer terms? No. They threatened annihilation. They see us as less than," Sarah Johnson said softly. Fingers paused above the helm controls. Like we're not even worth the conversation. Exactly, Maya said. And that's the problem. If we leave without pushing back, even a little, that perception gets locked in. And that's not just a problem for us, it's a problem for us. It's a problem for all of humanity, because next time, there won't be a warning. She looked around the room, letting her words settle in. I'm not planning to fire on them. I'm not planning to pick a fight. But we are going to show them that we don't scare easy and that we're not children to be herded back into our corner of space. She tapped her comm badge. Petrov, how's that tachyon impulse coming along? The grizzled chief engineer answered with his usual lack of sugarcoating. We're nearly ready, Captain. I had to reroute part of the forward sensor array and modulate the phase coupler manually. But I've got a tight focused burst locked in. Won't fry anything, but it'll definitely tickle their shields. Good. Stand by for my signal. She turned to Parker. I want micro jumps loaded and ready. Randomized. Tight intervals. Just a few light seconds in each direction. Short range only, but enough to screw with their targeting. Parker nodded. I'll pre-program 10 sequences. No pattern. They won't be able to anticipate them. Excellent. Dr. Wong, as soon as that impulse hits, I want you all over their shield response. Look for changes, frequencies, feedback, anything we can use. Already building the analysis matrix, Wong replied. Should have real-time telemetry the moment we ping them. Maya moved back to the center of the bridge and faced her crew. This is a test, not of weapons, not of firepower, a test of will. We're going to show the hegemony that we're not intimidated by size or threats or centuries-old borders we didn't agree to. If they want to judge us, let them see us on our feet, not our knees. There were no cheers, no applause. Just a unified silence of people who understood their roles and trusted their captain. Petrov, Maya called. Fire the pulse. From deep within the ship, the modified sensor array released a sharp, precisely tuned tachyon burst aimed directly at the nearest alien vessel. The impulse was invisible to the naked eye, but every sensor on the Andromeda lit up instantly. The data streamed in, lines of code racing across Wong's display. Shields are adapting, Wong called out. They cycle on a rhythm, mathematical, consistent. Every 3.7 seconds, there's a phase realignment. That could be a weak point. No response from the alien ships yet, Patil added. Still holding formation. All right, Maya said. Execute the micro jumps. Let's rattle their cage. Parker hit the command key. The Andromeda blinked out of its position and reappeared a few light seconds to the left. Then again. Each jump just long enough to disorient and confuse, just short enough to avoid escalating things. It was like a boxer darting in and out of reach, testing their opponent's timing. Still no lock-on, Patil reported. They're tracking us but not engaging, Captain Lai Wei said suddenly. Incoming transmission. Same ship, same signal. Looks like we struck a nerve. Put it through. The alien face returned. Its expression still unreadable, but Maya could sense the shift. The black eyes seemed slightly narrowed, and the tone that followed was sharp. Your provocative actions will not be tolerated. This is your final warning. Withdraw or face the consequences. Maya didn't hesitate. I apologize if we caused any offense. We were conducting standard exploratory maneuvers. Our species has a tendency to investigate things. It's what makes us human. The alien blinked. Your primitive displays do not impress the hegemony. You will depart. Maya tilted her head slightly, smiling. You mentioned earlier that you don't negotiate with lesser species. That implies you do negotiate with species you consider equals. So I have to ask, how do you determine that? What's the criteria? The alien's mouth twitched. Was it annoyance? Surprise? She couldn't be sure. This discussion is irrelevant. You have been given clear instructions. But it's not irrelevant to us, Maya said. If you're going to label a species, lock them into developmental zones. Restrict their movement. Shouldn't there be a transparent process? You say we're too primitive, but we're here, talking to you. We found you. And if we can do that, what else do you think we might be capable of? There was a long pause. The alien leaned slightly to the side, as if consulting someone just off-screen. Then it said something unexpected. Your behavior is unexpected. Maya chuckled. Yeah, we get that a lot. She didn't wait for a response. Let's talk, face to face. Send a shuttle or we'll come aboard your ship. Show us you're more than just threats and intimidation. Show us you're capable of respect. The screen went dark. No answer, just silence. A heavy beat passed. Then Patil whispered, "They're not attacking." Still holding position, Captain, Wong said quietly. That wasn't a refusal. No, it wasn't, Maya said with a slow grin. They waited. 20 minutes later, a message came through a new signal, different frequency, a simple set of coordinates, an invitation. They're letting us dock, Likeway confirmed. They want a meeting. Maya straightened her uniform, exhaling slowly. Then let's give them one. She turned to her crew once more. This is it. This is the moment. We're not just representing the Andromeda. We're representing all of Earth. We do this right. We open doors that have been closed for millennia. We do this wrong. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The crew already knew what was at stake. The shuttle's thrusters whispered softly in the vacuum of space as it pulled away from the Andromeda. The hull briefly bathed in the ship's blue engine glow. Inside the cabin, Captain Maya Chen sat strapped in alongside Dr. Elisa Wong and Lieutenant Emma Parker. None of them spoke much during the short flight, though the silence wasn't from fear. It was focus, sharp, concentrated anticipation. This wasn't a battle, not yet, but it was a confrontation, and Maya knew the stakes could shift with one wrong word. Through the shuttle's forward viewport, the alien vessel loomed like a sleeping giant. Its surface shimmered with geometric crystalline patterns that pulsed faintly, as if the ship itself was alive. The hegemony hadn't given it a name, at least. Not one humans could understand. But Maya knew instinctively it was no ordinary warship. It wasn't built just to fly, it was built to intimidate. As the shuttle was drawn into its docking bay, a field of soft blue light washed over the hull. Atmospheric scan, Wong whispered, and probably 100 other scans too. I'd be disappointed if they didn't, Maya replied, eyes locked forward. Let's not forget they think they're the adults in the room. The shuttle touched down with barely a bump. The landing struts hissed as they locked in place, and a soft chime signaled the all clear to disembark. The ramp lowered, and for the first time in human history, a small team from Earth stepped aboard a galactic hegemony flagship. The corridor that greeted them was surreal, smooth, crystalline walls, glowing softly from within, stretched into the distance. The material looked almost like glass, but denser, refracting their reflections in faint, ghostly duplicates. No visible seams, no visible wiring, just an eerie, seamless perfection. A delegation of 6 aliens waited at the far end of the corridor. They stood tall and motionless, their translucent skin showing the shadows of internal organs shifting subtly with every movement. Each one had a unique ridge pattern across their heads, though one clearly the leader wore metallic bands embedded into the ridges like ceremonial armor. He stepped forward, "I am Sub-Commander Nexaval," he said in his alien voice, still eerily fluent in English. "You will be escorted. Do not deviate. Any attempt to communicate externally or access your vessel will be treated as hostile." Maya responded with calm authority. "Understood. Our crew has standing orders to remain on alert but inactive unless provoked." She didn't mention the specific contingency orders that had been relayed before departure, a defensive plan cobbled together in under 4 hours should anything go wrong aboard the alien ship. They didn't come here to start a war, but she'd be damned if they walked into a trap without a way out. The aliens led them through a labyrinth of intersecting corridors, each more surreal than the last. It was like walking through a diamond palace constructed by beings who had mastered both engineering and intimidation. Dr. Wong was visibly fascinated, eyes darting over every subtle flicker of light and energy field embedded in the walls. Parker, on the other hand, remained hyper-alert, one hand never far from the emergency signal embedded into her wrist sleeve. Eventually, the group was brought into a large croccular chamber. It reminded Maya immediately of something between a senate and a court-tiered rows rising around a central platform that was clearly meant for addressing an audience. Above them, embedded into the crystal dome, hung what looked like a dynamic display of galaxies, constellations, and shifting energy flows. Ornamental and strategic. A place built to impress and intimidate. Maya had no illusions this wasn't a meeting room. It was a judgment hall. A dozen alien figures filled the upper tiers, each more elaborately adorned than the last. Their head ridges bore intricate metallic inlays, and they sat in silence, watching the humans with those black, pupil-less eyes. Maya stood with her team at the platform's center. Sub-Commander Nexaval announced them. Captain Maya Chen of Earth, accompanied by advisors. Subject to review by the High Executor and the Hegemony Council. The High Executor rose slowly from the highest tier. He was taller than the others, his ridge marked with gold and violet metals that shimmered like oil. When he spoke, the room fell utterly silent. "Captain Chen of Earth," the voice echoed, low and commanding. "You stand before the Judgment Council of the Galactic Hegemony. For over 12,000 stellar cycles, we have maintained order among the stars. Civilizations are permitted to develop within structured limits to prevent chaos. Unchecked expansion leads to conflict, destruction. The hegemony exists to prevent that." Maya nodded politely but said nothing yet. "Let him speak. Your species was designated a Category 3 civilization 400 stellar cycles ago, based on observed technological capabilities and societal development. You have exceeded your designated zone. This is a violation of Directive 5291. He paused, perhaps waiting for Maya to respond. She didn't disappoint. "May I ask," she said evenly, "who made that designation? And based on what observations?" The alien's black eyes narrowed slightly. "The Classification Council made that determination after long-range monitoring of your planet's technological emergence. The cycle in question corresponds with your species' early industrial phase." Maya raised an eyebrow. "So, you locked us into a box back when we were just figuring out how to burn coal efficiently. Interesting." There was a murmur among the council members, clicks, hisses, tones that no human translator could yet decipher. Maya gestured to Dr. Wong, who stepped forward and produced a small holoprojector. She activated it. The hologram bloomed in the air, a full three-dimensional schematic of the hegemony ship's internal systems. Power conduits, propulsion units, even a probable location for their command hub. Maya spoke softly, casually. This is a reconstruction of your flagship based on passive scans we conducted during our approach. Nothing aggressive, just observation. The response was immediate. A cascade of vocalizations, some clearly alarmed, others angry, filled the chamber. Several alien advisors turned to one another, gesturing frantically. The High Executor raised a six-fingered hand to silence them. Such scanning should not be possible with your level of technology. Perhaps not by your estimation, Maya said, her voice neutral. But humans develop unevenly. We might lag in some areas, but we leap forward in others, fast. Lieutenant Parker stepped forward now, her voice steady and professional. We've also identified your shield harmonic frequencies. They operate on a repeating mathematical sequence. A precise energy burst could, in theory, exploit the cycle to temporarily breach a segment of your defenses. Another ripple of unrest. More gesturing, more rapid clicks and hisses. Maya didn't need to be fluent in alien languages to understand what that meant. Parker had hit a nerve. Hard. Is this a threat? The High Executor demanded, rising to his full height. Not at all, Maya said, keeping her voice even. This is an exchange. You've been watching us for centuries. We thought it only fair to share a few of our own observations. Call it professional courtesy. She paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough to twist the tension tighter. Now, she continued, you say we're still a Category 3 civilization, but based on our ability to analyze your ship, communicate across quantum distances, and conduct first-contact diplomacy, you may want to revisit that classification. Almost on cue, Maya's comm badge chirped softly. She tapped it. Apologies, she said casually. We're receiving a transmission. One moment, she checked her wrist console and smiled. Ah, reinforcements have arrived. As a precaution, we sent a quantum entangled message back to Earth. Looks like we got a faster response than expected. The effect was immediate and dramatic. One of the hegemony guards turned and sprinted from the chamber. Moments later, a new alien entered, breathless, speaking rapidly in their native tongue. Maya couldn't understand the words, but she understood the reaction. Panic, confusion. They weren't expecting this. The High Executor's composure faltered. 3 additional vessels have appeared on the border of this sector. They identify themselves as human. They claim to be responding to a distress call. Maya nodded. Standard procedure. The Andromeda is an exploration vessel. When we encounter an unknown threat or potential first contact, we notify Earth. They send a follow-up team. That, of course, was a complete bluff. She hadn't expected anyone to respond this quickly. Either someone had been closer than anyone admitted, or something much bigger was unfolding in the background. The High Executor turned to the Council, conferring in urgent whispers. Then he looked back at Maya. This council will recess to assess these developments. You will be escorted to a holding suite. The meeting had ended for now, but the balance had already shifted. As the guards led them from the judgment chamber, Dr. Wong leaned close to Maya. Captain, what just happened? Maya's voice was low, careful. Either Earth's got more assets in this region than they've told anyone, or someone else is watching the hegemony, and they're backing us. Wong nodded slowly. And if it's the latter, Maya's eyes gleamed. Then this game just got a lot more complicated. The waiting chamber was far more luxurious than Maya expected, but she wasn't fooled. Soft lights glowed from the crystalline walls, casting cool blue hues across the room's curved architecture. Embedded within the floors were complex light patterns that subtly shifted as the humans moved, like an invisible system was tracking their positions. Cushioned seating lined the perimeter. Low tables made of glassy stone, and a transparent screen showed a panoramic view of the stars. But the real decor was hidden the dozens of surveillance nodes and energy dampeners subtly woven into the space. Maya could feel them, watching, measuring. She sat on one of the curved seats with her elbows on her knees, palms pressed together, her gaze steady. Across from her, Dr. Wong was pacing, muttering to herself as she reviewed a floating holopad. Lieutenant Parker sat near the door, eyes locked on a panel where she suspected at least one surveillance drone was stationed. Her fingers kept tapping lightly, restless, alert. Maya's voice broke the silence. "We just put a crack in the hegemony's mask." Wong turned. "You think so?" "I don't think," Maya replied. "I saw it when we showed them the scan of their ship and mentioned the shield harmonics. They weren't expecting that. They're used to being the smartest ones in the room." Parker nodded. Their reaction gave it away. They went from smug to uncertain in 10 seconds flat. "They still have the firepower to swat us like flies," Wong said cautiously. "Maybe," Maya agreed. "But power's not the only currency in politics. Right now they're recalculating. They're realizing they don't know us as well as they thought. And that scares them." Wong glanced toward the viewing window. "Do we know anything about the ships that arrived? Could they actually be from Earth?" Maya shook her head. "Not a clue. The quantum entanglement transmission we sent was real, but Earth wasn't supposed to respond for days. Either someone was listening who shouldn't have been, or we're not the only ones keeping secrets." Just then, the door slid open with a faint whisper. A hegemony aide entered, eyes sweeping the humans with that same unreadable expression they'd all come to recognize. Behind the aide stood Subcommander Nexval. "You will return to the council chamber," Nexval said. "A decision has been made." Maya stood, straightened her jacket, and motioned to the others. "Showtime." As they followed Nexval through the crystalline hallways again, Maya could sense the shift. Subtle but definite. The guards were walking slightly farther ahead than before. Less rigid, more wary. The corridors were quieter, the lights dimmed lower. The hegemony wasn't just assessing anymore, they were reacting. Back in the judgment hall, the atmosphere had changed entirely. Where earlier the council had exuded cold superiority, now there was tension, still dignified, but palpable. The air felt heavier. Some of the hegemony delegates had altered their seating positions. Two were whispering. One was reviewing a series of data streams on a floating holographic tablet, and the high executor no longer looked entirely composed. He rose, again, though this time with less grandeur. "Captain Chen," he said, skipping most of the formal preamble. "We have communicated with the newly arrived vessels." Maya's heart skipped once, but her face remained neutral. "Their technological capabilities exceed previous hegemony assessments of human development. The Classification Council has been reconvened to evaluate humanity's status." Maya nodded slowly. "We appreciate your willingness to adapt to new information. That shows maturity." The high executor did not respond to her veiled jab, though she caught the faintest twitch in his jawline. "The council has agreed to allow one of the reinforcement vessels to dock with this station," he continued. "Its commanding officer will join these proceedings shortly." Maya's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She didn't know who was about to walk through those doors, but she knew this. Whoever it was, they had just reshaped the dynamic of the entire conversation. A long moment passed. Then the chamber doors opened once more. A tall man entered, gray-haired but solid, wearing a crisp, dark uniform with insignia Maya didn't recognize. It wasn't standard UF issue, not exactly. It bore the markings of authority, but also secrecy. He walked with calm precision, Not a single wasted movement. His boots made only the softest taps against the crystal floor as he approached the central platform. When he turned toward Maya, he offered a subtle nod, and the kind of smile you give someone when the game is already won. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice smooth and measured. "Admiral James Erickson, United Earth Defense Fleet." Maya blinked just once. She knew every official Earth Fleet designation. This one didn't exist. "Not publicly anyway, Admiral," she returned, voice firm. "Thank you for your prompt response." Erickson turned toward the council and gave a shallow bow. "High Executor, esteemed members of the Hegemony Council, on behalf of Earth, we acknowledge this first formal contact with your civilization. We regret the confusion surrounding our entrance into your space, and are here in the spirit of cooperation." His tone was polished, deliberate, and every word had been crafted for maximum effect. What followed over the next 6 hours was a masterclass in controlled revelation. Erickson didn't outright threaten the hegemony, he didn't have to. Instead, he presented a series of data streams, projections, and communication logs detailing Earth's real capabilities: quantum communication infrastructure, deep space resource extraction colonies, mobile orbital shipyards, advanced gravitic shielding, sensor arrays capable of scanning through cloaking fields. Most of it was real. Some of it, Maya suspected, was exaggerated. But all of it was close enough to the truth that the hegemony couldn't dismiss it outright. He spoke of humanity's rapid expansion, its willingness to adapt, its decentralized approach to innovation, and its growing presence across 26 star systems. He even mentioned in passing humanity's asymmetric capability for conflict resolution, a subtle nod to unconventional tactics and guerrilla warfare that didn't go unnoticed by the alien delegates. By the time the meeting adjourned, the Council had agreed to recognize humanity as a provisional Category 2 civilization, one step below full diplomatic parity, but enough to permit limited navigation through hegemony-controlled trade corridors. As they walked toward the docking bay where a shuttle would take them back to the Andromeda, Maya finally turned to Erickson, voice low. "United Earth Defense Fleet?" she asked. Erickson smiled, this time more genuinely. "Unnecessary fiction. The ships that responded to your message aren't strictly official, private vessels?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "Let's just say," he replied, "there are elements within Earth's governments, plural, that have been preparing for this moment for longer than the general public knows." Maya processed that. "That's how you got here so fast. You've already been operating in this region, correct?" Erickson said. "We've had outposts in this sector for nearly a decade. Listening, observing, preparing. Your encounter with the hegemony simply provided the right moment to step into the spotlight." She glanced sideways at him. "And the hegemony didn't notice you?" "They did, eventually. But they'd grown complacent. Their patrols are predictable. Their sensor tech is advanced, but stagnant. They haven't faced a serious challenge in thousands of years. They didn't think anyone could sneak past their nets." Maya looked ahead at the shuttle, her mind churning. "So all this entire meeting, the scans, the bluff, it worked because they underestimated us." "Exactly," Erickson said with a quiet grin. "And they always will. That's their flaw. They think strength only comes from tradition and control. But real strength, it comes from adaptability, from resilience, from refusing to back down when someone tells you to kneel." They reached the shuttle. As the doors slid open and the ramp extended, Maya turned for one last look at the vast alien station. What had begun as a simple exploration mission had turned into the first spark of something far larger. Humanity was no longer a silent observer in the cosmos. They had stepped onto the stage, loud, uninvited, and impossible to ignore. Erickson stepped in beside her. "Congratulations, Captain. You've just secured humanity's place among the stars." Maya smiled faintly, that familiar fire in her chest returning. "I just did what any human would do when someone tried to box us in." Erickson nodded. "And that's the part the hegemony will never understand." As the shuttle lifted off and carried them back to their ship, Maya knew one thing with complete certainty. The galaxy had just gotten a whole lot messier and far more interesting. The lights in the hegemony's council chamber had dimmed ever so slightly, barely noticeable unless you were paying close attention. But Captain Maya Chen noticed. She noticed everything. The subtle flicker of the ambient lighting, the slight shift in the positions of the council members. The way the guards at the side of the chamber now stood with a little more tension in their frames, their stance not quite as confident as before. She stood again in the center of the circular chamber, this time not alone. Admiral James Erickson stood beside her, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp and calculating. The council, now fully assembled, stared down from the tires above, less like gods dispensing judgment and more like uncertain diplomats struggling to regain control of a conversation that had veered off script. The High Executor was the first to speak, though his voice no longer carried the same arrogance it once had. "Captain Chen, Admiral Erickson, following our preliminary discussions, and after reviewing the information provided by your defense fleet, the Council of Classification has reached a provisional decision regarding the status of your species." Maya stood still, composed. "The galactic hegemony hereby acknowledges humanity as a Category 2 civilization. This status grants limited diplomatic rights, conditional trade access, and provisional navigation corridors within designated sectors of hegemony-controlled space." He paused. "Further upgrades to status will be contingent upon continued observation, peaceful conduct, and technological transparency." Admiral Erickson gave a small nod of appreciation. "That is acceptable." Maya took a half-step forward, careful not to speak over him but firm in her presence. "We welcome the opportunity to prove ourselves through action, not assumption." There was a beat of silence. Some members of the council looked at each other, uncertain whether to view this moment as a diplomatic success or a potential threat cleverly disguised in manners. Then one of the lower-tier counselors stood, a female Vex, her head ridges etched with complex silver mathematical inlays, spoke clearly. "I would advise that we assign a diplomatic liaison, a hegemony representative to oversee human activity in shared zones." Erickson didn't hesitate. "Agreed. We'll assign one of our own to coordinate as well. We believe in transparency. That includes you understanding how we operate." He opened his mouth perhaps to reassert authority, but another aide approached rapidly, whispering something in their native tongue. Maya caught the stiffening of the High Executor's shoulders. His expression froze. "Another development?" Erickson asked calmly. "The newly arrived vessels," the High Executor said slowly, "have transmitted additional data. Their systems and infrastructure are beyond our expectations." "Then the reassessment was well-timed," Maya said. "Wouldn't want the hegemony making decisions based on outdated information." The executor blinked at her. Was that irritation or growing respect? "We will allow one of the vessels to dock," he finally said. "Its commanding officer will be invited to continue discussions." Maya nodded. A wise step. With that, the session was officially paused again. The council recessed for internal deliberations, allowing the humans to retreat to the diplomatic suites once more. But this time, the tone was different. The corridors weren't just patrolled, they were watched, monitored, scrutinized with the eyes of an empire that had just realized it wasn't as omniscient as it had believed. Inside the suite, Maya finally allowed herself to exhale. "We did it," she said, half in disbelief. "We actually pulled it off." "Correction," Erickson replied, pouring himself a glass of dark amber liquid from a decanter left for them. "We bought time. Recognition is one thing. Respect takes longer." Maya accepted the drink he offered and sat opposite him. "I don't think they ever expected us to be this coordinated," she admitted. "The tech, sure, but the diplomacy. They thought we'd come in wild, chaotic, maybe even panicked. Because that's how most species behave when they first brush up against the hegemony," Erickson said. "But humans, we're messy. But we adapt." He took a sip and added, "And we lied better than anyone." That made Maya laugh. That part wasn't in the Academy handbook. Of course not. But this game isn't played with ships and guns. It's played with perception. And right now, we're winning the first round. Maya set her glass down, her mind turning. "We've established our presence. That's good. But now we're a known quantity, and that means we're a variable in their plans. And the hegemony doesn't strike me as an empire that tolerates variables." "Then we stay unpredictable," Erickson said. "We don't fit their boxes. We don't follow their rules of engagement. We negotiate when they expect us to fight. We fight when they expect surrender. We keep them guessing." "Sounds like a long game," she replied. "It always is. They didn't have to wait long before the next phase began." Hours later, a formal transmission arrived from the hegemony, an invitation to a diplomatic banquet aboard one of their primary capital vessels. A ceremony to commemorate the historic establishment of contact between humanity and the galactic hegemony. In plain terms, a show of unity for public record, an attempt to reassert control of the narrative. Maya accepted, of course. That's what diplomacy demanded. But she brought Erickson with her. And both of them knew the real ceremony wasn't about food or formality. It was about dominance, power, and who could maintain composure under scrutiny. The banquet hall was immense, layered with translucent domes, revealing stars and nebulae beyond. Alien dignitaries from dozens of species lined the circular room. But the human still newcomers drew the most attention. Maya could feel the eyes on her like heat. Studying, measuring, some curious, some openly hostile. As courses of alien cuisine were served, she played the role with grace, nodding at comments, deflecting intrusive questions with polite vagueness. But beneath it all, she was watching, listening. Every gesture from the hegemony's representatives, every tone in their conversations, she cataloged it all. At one point, a mid-level delegate leaned toward her and asked, in English, "Do all your people speak as you do?" Maya smiled. "Only when we're trying to be nice." The alien tilted its head, confused. Erickson chuckled beside her and added, "She means we're a very diverse species. Opinions differ. Strongly, chaotically," Maya added. "But that's our strength." The alien seemed genuinely baffled. "Chaos is not a strength. To the hegemony," Maya said gently. "But to us, it's part of how we survive. We don't follow a single doctrine. We adapt. We question. We push boundaries." Erickson finished her thought. "That's why we made it this far, and why we'll keep going." The hegemony learned something that evening, not from speeches or strategic documents, but from presence, from how the humans behaved when immersed in the galaxy's elite. Not submissive, not overeager, but bold, composed, aware of their role and determined to shape it on their terms. The next day, a formal communique arrived. A multi-party trade agreement was being drafted. The humans were invited to participate. Conditional, of course. Tentative. But it was a beginning. Back aboard the Andromeda, Maya stood before her bridge crew and relayed the update. "We're no longer unknowns," she told them. "We're recognized, watched. We've taken a step into a much larger world." There was a quiet, almost reverent silence among the crew. Then Raji spoke. "Feels like we just opened a door that's been shut for eons," Maya nodded. "And now we're standing in the doorway. The question is, do we walk through, or do we kick it open?" Laughter rippled across the room. Tense, but real. And for the first time in days, it felt like everyone exhaled. But deep down, Maya knew this was only the beginning. The hegemony had let them in, but not out of kindness, out of necessity. And necessity could change. Fast. She stared out at the stars through the main viewport and whispered to herself, "They've seen our face. Now they're going to see our nature." Because the truth was simple. Humanity didn't rise by waiting politely. It rose by daring. The shuttle ride back to the Andromeda was silent for the first few minutes. Captain Maya Chen sat near the front, her gaze fixed on the docking arm receding from the hegemony station. The stars beyond it now felt different, more alive, more dangerous, more full of potential. Behind her, Admiral James Erickson sat with his arms crossed, seemingly relaxed, but clearly turning over thoughts in his mind. Dr. Wong and Lieutenant Parker flanked them both, equally quiet, their eyes shifting between each other and the controls. It had been a whirlwind of revelations. In just over a day, humanity had gone from an unrecognized species to a diplomatically acknowledged civilization, from isolated upstarts to participants in galactic affairs. They had stood in judgment halls and at negotiating tables, faced veiled threats and false politeness, all while carefully balancing the image they projected. And somehow they'd walked away not just standing tall, but with a door cracked open. But now, alone again in the shuttle, with the station drifting behind them like a giant crystal monument. Reality was sinking in. "Admiral," Maya said quietly without turning her head. "What happens now?" Erickson exhaled slowly through his nose. Now we report back. Compile every word, every glance, every scan, and then we wait." "For what?" "For the next move." Parker shifted. "Do you really think they'll honor the diplomatic corridor access?" "For now," Erickson said. "It's in their interest. They've been caught off guard. They're recalculating. But that window won't stay open long. The hegemony plays the long game. Always has. We forced their hand, but that doesn't mean we've earned their trust." Maya finally turned, her voice firmer. "I'm not interested in their trust. Just their acknowledgement that we're not going away." Erickson smiled faintly. "That's the right mindset." The shuttle landed with a soft thud. As the ramp descended, the Andromeda's crew was waiting, lined up in formation. Crisp uniforms, sharp eyes. They didn't cheer. They didn't break rank. But Maya could feel the pride radiating from them. Their captain had gone toe-to-toe with a galactic empire and come back alive and respected. She nodded once to them, stepped down the ramp, and for the first time since this all began, allowed herself a breath of satisfaction. But there was no time for celebration. She had a message to record. One that would travel back to Earth, encrypted and prioritized. One that would lay the foundation for humanity's presence in this new political arena. Back in her ready room, Maya stood before the large viewport, watching the stars slowly shift as the Andromeda resumed slow navigation outside the boundary marker. Her message began with a simple, honest statement to United Earth Command. This is Captain Maya Chen of the Andromeda. As of today, humanity is no longer a rumor to the galaxy. We are present, we are accounted for, and we are no longer contained. She paused, considering her next words carefully. We've made contact with the galactic hegemony. We've been judged and challenged. And we've responded not with hostility, but with resolve. Through diplomacy, composure, and strategic pressure. We've gained recognition as a Category 2 civilization. This status is provisional, but make no mistake, it's a foothold. She looked out again at the stars. The galaxy doesn't know who we are. Not really. They know statistics, projections, intercepted broadcasts. But they don't know humanity. Not the way we know ourselves. They don't know what we've survived, what we've endured. They don't know that our greatest strength isn't our technology, it's our will. She leaned forward slightly, her tone personal now. If the hegemony thought we'd shrink at the first threat, if they thought we'd retreat when told to stay in our lane, then they've already misunderstood the very essence of what makes us human. Because the moment you tell a human you can't, that's the moment we start figuring out how we will. The message ended. She sent it with priority encryption through the Andromeda's quantum relay node. Back on the bridge, Dr. Wong approached her quietly. They'll study us more closely now, she said. Track us. Maybe test us, Maya nodded. Good. Let them see who we are. Wong looked around the bridge. I think they already are. Over the next several days, the Andromeda resumed its exploration schedule, cautiously venturing along the edges of the newly granted trade corridors. Hegemony patrol ships shadowed them at a distance, always there, but never intervening. It was like being under a microscope. Every movement was being logged, every scan, every transmission. But Maya didn't alter course, didn't flinch. She wasn't going to prove humanity's worth by hiding. She was going to show it by being exactly who they were: bold, curious, unrelenting. One morning, as the crew began their usual operations, Raji Patil spoke from the sensor station. Captain, we've got another signal. Not hegemony, not on any known frequency set. Maya stood up, walking to his console. Can you isolate it? Already did, but it's artificial. Coordinates? He pulled them up on screen. Looks like it's coming from a system just outside the designated corridor. Barely outside. Wong stepped forward. Could be a relay left by another species. Or something dormant waking up. Could be nothing. Maya's expression remained unreadable. Or it could be someone else watching the hegemony. Just like us. The crew turned to look at her. The implication was obvious. You want to go check it out? Parker asked, already knowing the answer. Maya didn't hesitate. Plot a course, Captain. It's outside the zone, Raji reminded her gently. So was first contact, she said. And so is everything worth finding. The engines of the Andromeda hummed louder, warmer as the ship turned. They were pushing boundaries again, just like always. Conclusion. The real-world lesson. The story of Captain Maya Chen and the Andromeda is more than just a fictional tale about humanity's first contact with an alien empire. At its heart, it reflects something very real about the human condition, something we see every day, across generations, cultures, and crises. We don't give up when someone says we can't. From the first human who crossed a mountain range without knowing what lay beyond, to the scientists who stared into the void and said, "Let's go anyway." The core of humanity has always been defiance, not in arrogance, but in hope. It's the same spirit that led people to break through unjust systems, to speak truth to power. To build rockets out of scrapyard parts and land them on another world. To survive, to thrive. Maya Chen didn't stand up to the hegemony with bigger guns or stronger ships. She stood up with conviction, with curiosity, with adaptability. She didn't deny the hegemony's power, she just refused to let it define her people. And that's the lesson. In real life, we are often told where our zones are. We're told how far we can go, who we're supposed to be, what we can or cannot become. But humanity's story, our real story, is about breaking those artificial boundaries. It's about asking the question, why not? When the world says no, whether it's on a distant alien stage or in the life of a single person struggling to rise, the truth remains, you don't earn your place by waiting for permission. You earn it by standing up and showing the world who you really are.